Popcorn Poops is brought to you by Audible.com. Please visit audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for a free audiobook and free 30-day trial of their subscription service. Audible is the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 150,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. Audible.com is offering a free audiobook download to listeners of Popcorn Poops along with a 30-day trial of their services. This week we're recommending Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, narrated by Carolina Crescentini. To download this or another audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/popcornpoops. Be sure to visit the correct URL so they know we sent you, and you'll be helping to support our show. Again, that's audibletrial.com/popcornpoops for your free audiobook. We are the Popcorn Poops.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Popcorn Poops, the best married couple movie podcast / commentary track hybrid audio program on the internet. My name is Jessica.
And I'm Dustin.
This month our theme is anime films, and my pick for this week's episode is Hiroyuki Okiura's A Letter to Momo from 2011. If you are syncing this recording up to the movie, go ahead and start the film and then press pause as soon as the production IG Venli card completely fades to black.
It's time to start the movie. Syncers, press play at the beep after the countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And this is our second to last anime film for our month of anime films, the month of March. And this is a movie that I saw for the first time a couple of years ago, like right after the home video release came out. But this is the first time, this week is the first time you've actually seen this movie. And it is your pick, so I'm going to just pass the ball to you and just give me briefly your experience with this movie, watching it for the first time this week.
I think we first saw the poster for this at one of the Tokyo anime conventions.
I believe it was at the 2010 or 2011 Tokyo International Anime Fair, which no longer exists actually.
And I remember just seeing the poster. I remember looking at it and being like, I'm going to love that movie.
This is a Jessica movie.
and then it came out and you watched it, and I don't remember what I was doing at the time. I was in a phase where I was reading a lot or writing a lot or something, and I wasn't watching anything. And I didn't watch it when you watched it, but like I knew, this month we decided we were not going to do any Miyazaki. We were not going to do any Ghibli whatsoever.
Right. If you haven't noticed, we haven't done any Ghibli films, and it would have been totally easy to fill an entire month with Miyazaki or Ghibli films, which is kind of the idea. That's something that we're planning on doing in the future. But we decided that the unspoken rule of this month of anime films would be no Ghibli, no Miyazaki.
And try not to repeat anyone either.
Right, try not to repeat any filmmakers.
Right,
so
because there were a couple times, like I wanted to do Paprika, and then...
We had already done Perfect Blue, or we were planning on doing Perfect Blue. I did actually want to do my pick for the last anime film of this month. We haven't announced yet. We'll announce it at the end of this episode. But I actually wanted to do Jinro the Wolf Brigade. That was one that was kind of floating around in my head. And when you decided to do this film, I decided we shouldn't do Jinro because it's actually by the same filmmaker. Hiroyuki Okiura has only made 2 movies. He made this and Jinro the Wolf Brigade, which is kind of a...
Oh, right here we can see the kids jumping off the bridge, which is going to be a big part of the rest of the movie. Yes,
it's kind of central to her character. Her character arc. It actually kind of bookmarks her path. But yeah, I really enjoyed Jinro a lot, and aesthetically, as far as character design and stuff like that goes, it looks very similar to this movie, but it is tonally completely different. It's like a dark dystopian, like militarized police tale that kind of mirrors Little Red Riding Hood. He was also an uncredited co-director on the Cowboy Bebop movie that I really enjoy. So I would say, in general, I'm a fan of Okiura's
and we also
work.
Didn't really do any.
It's not terribly prolific though.
We didn't do any like anime movies based off of TV shows either.
Right.
But anyways, before we get away from it, this ferry ride, the only thing I could think of when I first saw it is I just kept thinking of taking the ferry across Lake Champlain when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Up at my grandparents in upstate New York. I guess ferries look the same everywhere.
Basically everywhere. Yeah, and that's interestingly, I think that this movie, well, although we are going to do what we usually do, we're going to be talking about theme and character and messages and lore and all that, and, you know, kind of folklore and the kind of things that go into this film. I think that we're probably...
Oh, these white trucks.
The K trucks. I have
Don't
a talking point about them. Oh, I see the look on your face. I hate them.
Oh my God, this truck! It just looks like a normal truck. You're just looking at it.
That goes right into what I was saying. We're going to be talking about our experiences in Japan with this one a lot because I think there's a lot to talk about. And so let's talk about the fucking K trucks.
Let's talk about fucking K trucks.
That little white truck is the kind of truck that you see a lot in Japan, and it's commonly farmers use it a lot. A lot of, you know, field workers and things like that. And the thing about them...
Explain K, too.
Oh, K car. A K car is a type of car in Japan that has I think it's a smaller engine somehow. I am not a car person, so it's probably got, the engine is little, so it don't use as much gas as the other kinds. But I think that's basically what it is. It's like a low emission kind of thing.
Right.
Not a hybrid, not an electrical car, just a smaller engine, so the emissions aren't quite
We have
as
a
bad.
K car.
Yeah, and if you have a K car in Japan, you get like this yellow license plate instead of the standard white.
Lower.
And your road taxes are lower and everything like that. So it's kind of the most economic way to drive in Japan. Strangely, hybrid cars aren't considered like yellow plate cars. You have to pay the same road tax on them.
Because it's like, I don't know, maybe it even has to do with like the weight of the car or something too.
Yeah, maybe something like
Full
that.
size cars generally are not K cars.
Heavier cars like maybe do more wear and tear on the roads.
But
I'm not
whatever.
Sure what it is.
The point is that K trucks are the worst thing ever.
They're real quick, right? They're real quick, and everyone who drives them is like an old man. And they will pull, like, I don't know what it is. In this movie too, it's true. True to life, art imitating life, right? But they will pull right out in front of you. Like they'll act like they don't see you coming. They'll pull right out in front. You got to slam on your brakes and
they just
turn without
get in
signaling. That's just like
stop wherever they want. Well, I mean, everybody does that.
If it's a K truck, you're almost guaranteed that the driver is the worst driver you've ever encountered.
And so they're going to pull right out in front of you, and then they're going to go like 10 kilometers per hour.
Yes,
the
and then they'll go
way.
super slow.
And they're just horrible. So when I see K trucks,
they're really terrible.
But you know, like it felt very real immediately. Like for me, when I see someone driving a K truck, I immediately think, oh, so this is a farmer, or this is a local guy who has some land or something like that. Which is maybe not something you'd get the impression of.
We do have a cute little K car, though. We have a little. You can look it up online. We have what's called it's a Daihatsu is the make, and the model is a Mira Gino, which would be
It's the cutest of the K cars.
2 words, MIRA space GINO. And you can look it up online. It's real cute. It's
mine's dark green. It's got these limited edition like little lights on the front. These little yellow fog lights.
Yours is like the turbo or something like that.
It's so cute, and it's been such a horrible car.
Yeah, it has been a terrible car. But look it up. Look it up on Google. It is cute. It's got kind of this Mini Cooper kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Anyways, though, so the reason I picked this movie is kind of in part because
you only like anime films that have to do with young girls in kind of slice of life.
I do love
settings.
Those kind of anime films. But no, it was really because we didn't do any Ghibli, and you wouldn't let me do anything I wanted to do. You wouldn't let me do Kiki or Sento Chihiro or anything I wanted to do. And also, I tried to do Cat Soup, and you got all pissy and were like, ooh, I'm not going to do short films. And so I couldn't even do Cat Soup.
It's like 45 minutes.
And
no one wants to hear us talk about Cat Soup.
Well, maybe I just wanted to talk about
It's already
Cat
got
Soup.
a very, very good commentary track on the DVD release. So if you haven't seen Cat Soup, a lot of people don't like it. We like it a lot, and it's got a great commentary that covers all of the symbolism and everything that you might want to know about that movie. We would only do it a disservice to talk about it.
Whatever. Anyways, so I wanted to do something that felt like Ghibli, and this movie definitely feels like Ghibli, maybe even a little too much.
Okay, here's my thing with this movie.
I don't think it's a little too much, but
here's my thing with this movie. We chose not to do Miyazaki or Ghibli for this month, but somehow you managed to pick My Neighbor Totoro again because this movie is My Neighbor Totoro.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
yes,
not.
it is.
No,
it's Totoro aged up. The themes are a little bit aged up.
With Chihiro as the main character.
With kind of Chihiro from Spirited Away.
A little older.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing I think, of course, our main character is aged up, but I also think the themes are aged up a little bit. Whereas, when we did actually, I think it was like our second episode way back last year, we actually did My Neighbor Totoro on the podcast, and one of the things we talked about was how this idea, the shadow of death hangs over the entire movie. Whether or not you're talking about the fan theories about Totoro's the god of death and all that kind of shit. There is kind of a shadow of death that hangs over everything because the kids, one of the main plot points, I don't even know if it's a plot point, but it's kind of background, is that their mother is sick and she's in the hospital. She's not around. So she's sick enough that she's staying in the hospital. So that's always kind of there, but it's never pointed enough. Like, it's never like this definite thing where it's definitely about death and it's definitely about the grieving process. Whereas in this film, our main character Momo's, her father has died, and that's her entire character thrust, is that she and her mother are mourning, and they're trying to start their life over. They've come to these islands, these Seto Islands, which I don't know if this particular island is real.
I was hoping you had tried to look it up because I couldn't find anything on the particular island.
Apparently, according to what we find out at the very beginning in the movie, they are riding a ferry across the Seto Inland Sea, which is a real sea.
Yeah.
It's a body of water
down in Shikoku, right?
Well, it separates Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu. So if you look at a map and you see the main island, the biggest island, which is Honshu, and then there's two smaller islands down below, the little body of water that separates those three is the Seto Inland Sea.
And when we say island, Honshu is the island that Tokyo is on. Like, that's one of the four main islands of Japan. So.
Right. Shiojima, when I tried to look up Shiojima with the kanji for Shiojima, it took me to Hiroshima, which is not an island, technically. Well, it's on an island technically, but aren't all continents really. So Shiojima, it doesn't appear to be an actual place, but I thought that there might be some thematic relevance to the kanji. Of course, the second kanji, Jima, comes from Shima, which means island, but Shio means tide, like the tides, which I think has some thematic relevance as far as like the passage of time and stuff like that and how life moves on. There's even like this image of a broken clock that we see repeated throughout the movie where the clock is stuck just before 6 o'clock.
And they say that it's not her grandfather. It would be Momo's great uncle.
Right. I don't know if all the subtitle tracks are like this across all releases, but the release that I have or that we have of this has them translated as grandmother and grandfather,
and it's wrong.
Which is wrong because in Japanese they're saying at least Ikuko, Momo's mother, is calling them aunt and uncle, which would make them Momo's great aunt and great.
Now,
uncle.
of course, these the term for aunt and uncle and grandmother and grandfather are actually pretty close.
They are. They're really close. You might, for grandmother or grandfather, you would say Oba-san and Oji-san respectively, but aunt and uncle is Oba-san and Oji-san respectively.
Right. So it's pretty close, and it's an easy mistake to make. But
well, for Westerns, for English speakers, yes, of course.
Right. Obviously not for native speakers.
Right. I just want to clear that up.
But anyways, though, so this is they're staying with Momo's great aunt and uncle, and the great uncle, he says, I believe it's him who mentions the clock and says that it stopped sometime in last spring or something like that. And the way the mom reacts to that, it gives me the impression that that's when Dad died. Yeah, and they also use this because, of course, spring, not only in Japan but in other cultures as well. Obviously, spring is seen as a symbolic time of birth and rebirth and all that kind of stuff because it's when all the flowers come back and all that kind of thing. They've even, similar to the United States, their fiscal year is set up to end and begin again in the spring. So does their school year, which is different from at least the United States. And we can see the cherry blossoms and stuff falling here in the flashback. So
exactly. And these images to me, I think, are intentionally ironic, where, you know, these people are grieving and going to a funeral during a time of symbolic, you know, rebirth and rejuvenation and life. I mean, that's really
well, I mean, if nothing else, the cherry blossoms falling is always associated with starting the new school year.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like I said, it's different here. Everything starts and ends at spring. So
it's graduation and the new school year.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So that's I think that there's some ironic imagery with
this
that.
movie.
This
I
moment
cried.
where she finds
I cried a lot
you
in
cried
this
through
movie.
this whole thing.
But I think the first time that I cried was right there where she sees her name on the page and then flips through and everything's blank. And then she ruins it right here by having to say it out loud. And this movie does that. I believe it's four times that there are 4 moments that feel really out of place for me. This is the first one of them, where either a character, either they vocalize internal thoughts. They do that twice, once with Momo and once with Koichi, the mailman carrier,
who's kind of carrying a torch for Ikuko. Yeah.
But they're going to do that with them, and then there's this moment in another scene from Momo too, where I don't need the information she just gave me. The information we see her have the flashback. We see her father leave and her say angry things at him, which honestly, the angry things, I don't know, it's almost a little too much, you know, it's almost a little cliche even. The you know, like, I don't care if you come back, I hate you, Daddy, or whatever, and then Daddy dies. But anyways, I can forgive that and whatever. But when she finds the letter and she sees her name on it in his desk and then all the pages are blank, it's like, oh God, my heart, like I feel it in my gut. And then we flash back to Momo in the present day and she has to vocalize it. And she says,
what
were you going to write, Dad? And I'm just like, no, please don't.
I think we talked about internal monologue a couple of weeks ago when we did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's something that I've kind of had an issue with as an anime fan forever. And this movie does it, as far as I can remember. It only does the internal thing, the internal like narration
2 times.
thing. Does it do it twice? I thought it was
twice.
Just once.
Okay. No, once is Momo when she's kind of praying one morning and she's like, oh, please don't let me see them, or please don't let me, talking about the yokai.
Right. And then that doesn't bother me so much as the point at which Koichi, toward the end of the movie, is just...
It's a very important emotional moment, and we'll talk about it when we get there. And suddenly he ruins it. He ruins
it by having a weird moment of internal narration.
That's the biggest sin in this movie, is that moment. This moment with the letter is a sin because I don't need that information, and it takes away from it when your audience already feels something and then you say it out loud directly to them. It's like, no, come on, I wanted to come to that on my own. I just wanted to feel it.
This is a movie that, to me, last week when we were talking about Perfect Blue, we talked about how one of the criticisms of Perfect Blue in the West, one that I feel like I successfully defended, was why it was made as an animated film. Right. And I think that there are certain things that I don't want to be reductive, but I think there are things that animated, that stories that are animated, can get away with. I think internal monologue is one of those, even though it bothers me so much. I think that it gets away with it more than maybe a live action
than live action does.
Than a live
but
action.
I still think it's generally
well. But the thing about this movie is that I don't really know why this movie is animated. I don't know that it brings anything to.
Because if they tried to do the yokai and stuff here, they would use really horrible CG and it would look like dick.
Well, either that or they would get the Jim Henson Company to. No, they probably wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't.
But the Jim Henson Company could make some badass yokai costumes, I'm sure.
Yeah, like I'm sure they could, costumes. But that wasn't going to happen.
But no, I don't feel like there's anything that grounds like that the animation like elevates either story-wise or thematically. Sure, visually, aesthetically, like it's pleasing to look at, and the way all of the yokai kind of fit into their surroundings. Like I also talked about one of my I can't remember if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, but one of my earliest revelations as a young film fan, a young studier of film, that is that in animation you can do anything, and you can do whatever you want, and you just draw it into the world and it feels like it fits, because that's just the nature of the medium. Of course that works for this movie. I don't know if there's anything else that really gives it a good reason to be animated, and because of that I feel like I'm judging this, or I'm criticizing this and analyzing this on the same plane as I would a live action film, and that's why some of those tropier things like the internal monologue bother me.
Before we're away from it here, we see that this young girl, how old is Momo in this?
12, 11.
11? I thought
she's supposed to be like 6th grade, or I think it's like 6th grade, something like that.
Yes, 6th grade is correct. But anyways, this 6th grader has been left home alone and has people coming over to the house to set up the telephone. And no big deal. And it is no big deal. Like, it just is. That's just Japan. This is the second movie that
I was
going to
say something. Yes, it is.
About missing pudding being important.
Right. This is the second movie in which someone's pudding was mistakenly eaten. Or wrongfully eaten by someone else. I feel like this is a trilogy, an incomplete trilogy that we need to do, because we had The Girl Who Leapt Through Time first, which has that plot point. We've got A Letter to Momo, and the only other anime film that I can think of that has that same plot point is Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods.
What?
The whole inciting incident for like the last big action scene in that movie is that one of the characters, a character named Boo, eats all of this pudding that this super powerful being wanted to try some of, and then he gets angry and they have to fight.
Japanese people generally don't like really, really sweet stuff. So like American cakes and desserts and things like that, it's delicious, but it's really rich. Yeah. And but pudding, creamy stuff is always a go here, and pudding is just everywhere.
I didn't tell you this, but the other day,
they're eating like the cheapo pudding in this movie, though. Yeah, they were eating the good stuff in
the cheapo pudding that comes in like multiple, like 3-in-1 pack.
It
or whatever.
reminds me of flan more than it reminds me of like
we talked about this a couple weeks ago. But yes, strangely, you're talking about how Japanese people typically don't eat really rich, sweet dessert type foods, and really American style desserts are often too sweet or too rich for their taste sensibilities. But interestingly, they've somehow instilled that even in their children, because we did come to the end of the school year, and I work in the public school system, and one of the last lunches that we got included like this little like baked pudding dessert type thing. And I was sitting with the kids, and they finished their meal and they're all looking forward to their pudding or whatever. And one of the kids sitting across from me finishes his, and he opens up his pudding and he starts eating it. And he's like making these noises like, "Oh, it's so good, it's so good." I'm like, "Does it taste good?" And he's like, "Yeah, it tastes like it has a lot of calories." What? And I'm like, "You're 10, dude. You're 10. So why are you worrying about calories?" No American 10-year-old that I've ever met, I think, would say something like that.
Oh my gosh! But yeah, pudding's a big deal here. Everybody loves pudding.
A big deal. A big deal? I don't know if it's a big deal, but it's...
Everybody eats pudding. It's a thing. I've been given pudding as gifts many a time. and you can get the fanciest
never
pudding. You can get
pudding
such
until
experience.
You've had to unwrap it before you can eat it.
Expensive pudding. But anyways, yeah, missing pudding again.
At the beginning of the movie, so she's starting to see the yokai, and yokai. If people out there don't know, yokai is like a Japanese spirit or a Japanese monster or mythological creature from folklore. And there are 3 in this movie, and that's one of the things that I want to mention is one of many things I think that are very similar to My Neighbor Totoro, is that there are 3 of these yokai in this movie, 1 large, 1 medium, and 1 small, just like
3 toads.
Just like the 3 Totoros in My Neighbor Totoro. And that's just one of many things. We've already seen her in the attic, and the attic is kind of a central location that important events happen, just like in My Neighbor Totoro. There's a scene where
but
Mei and Satsuki...
there's only one moment in Totoro.
Yeah,
where
well,
they go
Totoro's
up to the
shorter
attic.
than this. So this movie's 2 hours long, by the way. Thank you for that. I don't know that it needs to be 2 hours long.
I think it's just fine.
You think it's fine for 2 hours?
I think it's just fine.
I think this... Okay, fine. That's fine. I think too. I think in my old age, in my ripened old age of 28 years old, I feel like few movies have a good excuse for being longer than 90 minutes.
Oh, please.
Honestly, I do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, we're not going to get into this right now. Yeah, this movie is not scushy as fuck, though, and
Did we already explain Natsukashi on a
sure
previous
we have.
episode? Natsukashi means we definitely did, but it means nostalgic.
and that's the thing that I love the most about this movie. That's what just draws me to it. It makes me want to eat traditional Japanese food.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to like sit in the bathtub for a really long time, and it makes me want to open the shoji, open the paper doors up, and drink cold tea.
Yeah.
It makes me want to deal with not having an air conditioner happily.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about having an old Japanese house and what it's like to be in one, because we live in an old Japanese house.
We do have an old Japanese house.
Probably not as old as the house that Momo lives in.
No, they live in a compound where they have multiple houses on the same property, which is the coolest thing that ever existed.
Oh, it's awesome. They're not terribly uncommon in Japan, but they're not super common.
Well,
either.
I mean, they're expensive.
They're very expensive. They're generational homes, and the way it typically works is that you'll have like one compound ground that's like walled off, and it'll have 2 to 3 houses on the property that are all walled in together with
and kind of like a courtyard in between them.
Yeah, a courtyard or a garden or something like that. And basically what happens is that the different generations move into whatever house is available. So, you've got the oldest generation, the grandparents living in one house, and then you've got, their children living in another house, and then their children living in another house. And then when the oldest die, then the next, generation moves into their house and all this kind of stuff. In
Japan, I mean, it's probably pretty common knowledge, but the eldest son stays at home. He
typically,
traditionally,
even if there is no like generational compound, and most people don't have this, but
out in the country, I bet it's more common. Out in like the way country, like they're living on this island in the middle of nowhere because there's more space.
Yeah, there's this walking path that I go on whenever I feel like exercising, which is almost never. There is a compound out there, but it's stuck in the middle of just these rice fields.
Yeah, in places where there are more land, you see more of them. Up in Scuba, where I work, there are a lot more compounds up there because it was all farmland up until the city was built.
There's one
ago.
on the road that you take to work that is very, very conspicuous. I'm pretty sure that it's definitely a Yakuza complex.
Definitely.
Because
it's got like spikes on the wall and stuff.
Yeah, so the wall,
floodlights.
It looks old, but like it's got like some of these modernizations that are very, very conspicuous. Like it's got spikes on the top of like surrounding the wall, which you never see here.
Japanese people don't even lock their doors and
stuff. Exactly. And then there's like cameras and floodlights, like motion sensor floodlights are on the house. And
it's not a question.
All of the cars are like black SUVs and sedans and stuff like that. It's so obviously a Yakuza house.
But I love this house that they're in. Our house is not this nice, but
it is not, because we have cats that piss on everything and scratch up the paper doors and stuff.
And can you believe that too? I mean, just look at this image right here. Right here we have straw floors and paper doors. This country loves cats. What? Any inconsistency that you can spot? Anything that makes you think that maybe these two things don't go together?
Well, I mean, at least they don't have a cat. If they had a cat and all that shit was still intact, I'd cry foul. I'd cry foul in a heartbeat.
Our paper doors do not look quite like this.
No, our paper doors look like shit.
Because kitties make cat doors.
They do. They do. They like to make their little secret passages.
And they also like to jump to the top of the paper doors and ride them down with their nails.
Yes, they also do that. So yeah, cats and old Japanese houses don't mix as well as you might think, as well as like the nostalgic part of your brain might think, where you're like, there's nothing greater than seeing like a little cat curled
sitting
up
on tatami and
sitting on a straw mat floor,
looking out into the garden.
With the little the wind chime blowing and the cicadas chirping and all that shit. Yeah,
the cat's gonna be sharpening her nails on that tatami.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's talk about the aesthetics of the movie, because I think it's a really gorgeous movie, actually.
Yes, it's beautiful.
I think 7 years is a really long time to have this movie in production, but I think I would say that it paid off, at least in the aesthetics department, because it looks incredible. It looks so good. Like it's got such like this realist touch to it, which is part of why I feel like I need to analyze it on kind of the same level that I do live action movies, which is not to say that one level is higher than another. They're just different parallel existences, I suppose. But yeah, like it's got this sense of realism to it, and it strives for that, and I think that's why I feel the need to approach it from that angle. That is to say that near the end of the movie, during the climax of the film, all of these other yokai come out in a sequence that is very similar to some moments in Spirited Away, I think. And all of those yokai, all of those spirits are animated differently than everything else in the movie. And it's an interesting technique that I believe there's an anime critic named Hope Chapman who refers to this style as runny eggs, which is kind of what happens when you don't have a key animator and the in-betweeners are forced to just kind of draw whatever comes next, or so they think. So everything kind of looks unhinged and sketchy, like it's like kind of like an animated napkin doodle, like that kind of thing. But I think it works. I really like the aesthetic of how the yokai near the end of the movie kind of pop out of the world in a different way. They do look really otherworldly in a way that not even our main three yokai do. The main three yokai feel like they're grounded in this world. They feel weighty, like they're as real as Momo or any of these other characters are. But yeah, I really like that. I like how it kind of steps outside of that aesthetic just briefly to show us something new and interesting.
This moment here as she's... Oh, there's another K truck. This moment here as she's preparing to jump off the bridge to go play with these kids, I really don't think... Look at her face. I really don't think she's scared of jumping off the bridge. I really think that it's not that. And when she's practicing jumping later, I questioned myself and I was like, maybe we are supposed to believe she's scared and that's why. But I really don't think that she was too scared to jump off the bridge.
No.
I think that it was that she saw them playing and the whole thing is that she's not ready to be happy.
No, she's not.
Her father
grieving.
has died.
This is a movie about grief. It's about the mourning process, and the thing that this movie absolutely nails is how everyone grieves differently. Everyone does. And
her mother hides it.
Mm-hmm. Her mother hides it for Momo's benefit, or so she thinks. She's hiding it for her benefit. She doesn't.
But it's actually hurting Momo.
Exactly, because Momo, toward the end of the movie, it is all revealed that Momo feels like her mother has forgotten her father and has just moved on when Momo's mother the whole time has actually been trying to hide her grieving from Momo to help her expedite Momo's grieving process. Which they both learn something from. Like they both learn something as characters. Their relationship is the central relationship in the movie. It's the most important one. So yeah, I think you're right about her not wanting to be happy yet.
Of course that's what it is. I mean, because you can just look at her face and oh no, I've forgotten his name. The boy who she becomes friends with.
Oh, what is it? I've got it written down somewhere.
Anyways, though, so he, they don't say it many times, but he is encouraging her to jump off the bridge. But at the same time, he's a cool guy. I like him because he's just like, but if you don't want to jump now, it's okay. It took me a year to jump, and don't feel like you have to jump, and it's okay. But the way she looks and the way her expression is, she doesn't look that concerned about jumping off the bridge. And she just kind of climbs over and she's like, oh, there's a moment where she kind of takes a breath and she's like, okay, gonna jump off this bridge. Yeah. But the moment when she stops, the look on her face is because of watching them play and splash and be children down at the bottom. And she kind of looks irritated by it. Yeah. She gets this look that's kind of like annoyed. And then she just gets off the bridge and she just walks home. And it's because she doesn't want to be a child anymore. She doesn't feel like she can, and she doesn't want to be happy. And it doesn't have anything to do with her not being brave enough, and I really like that.
No, it's about her building relationships and not feeling like it's okay for her to build new relationships yet, because she's just lost one of the most important relationships in her life. So it is like that sense of progress, that sense of emotional progress is somewhat cemented or made physical, made tangible in the whole decision about whether or not she's going to jump off the bridge. And when she does, it's kind of hokey to put it into an English idiom, but she does take the plunge. She does decide that it's time to move forward. And there is a really, I think, poignant moment where she doesn't jump off the bridge. She doesn't go to meet the kids, but she goes and tries to jump off of something lower by herself. And it kind of shows that there is a sense of progress to this, that it isn't a light switch, that it's not like, okay, I'm grieving now and I'm okay and I'm going through this stuff, but now I'm not going through this stuff anymore, and it's okay. It shows that it is kind of, it tapers off, right? And
you don't wake up one morning and just feel fine.
No, of course not. So she's, I think all of that is really, I think it's really good writing. I think it's good characterization at the very least. And then she's got these yokai around who kind of push her through, and they're also representative of helping her get through this, this hard time. And they kick her right into the water when she tries to jump off something lower. They just kick her in. And they do it multiple times.
We missed a moment a little bit before the bridge scene where her mom was reminding her to eat, and she does that a few times throughout this movie, where her mom keeps telling her to eat. And that's something that I picked up on because that felt significant to me, because for me, when I've gone through times in my life where I've been grieving, eating is something that I have no desire to do. And I know everyone reacts to grief differently, and stress as well differently. And a lot of people do eat as a way to relieve those kind of emotions. But I'm one of those people that doesn't eat when I'm stressed or grieving.
For a lot of people, like grief does weird stuff to you, and it takes a lot of primary functions, and it depends on the person, of course, and that's, again, something this movie understands very well. But it takes these primary functions of life and it can make them secondary. Things that you consider primary, like eating and sleeping and resting and bathing and
taking care of yourself.
Right, taking care of yourself, and all of those things that come first, right, in living a life. Can become secondary when you're just overcome with this intense emotion.
And her mother is utterly concerned with her. Every time her mom leaves the house, every time she talks to her in the beginning of the movie, not every time, but many of the conversations end with or start with or are on a note that says something about don't forget to eat this, don't forget to eat, you aren't eating, eat your food.
Right.
And of course that's a mother just nagging a daughter and trying to take care of her, but I think it has to do with the mom realizing that maybe Momo isn't going to do those basic things because Momo is distressed. See, this is the moment where she's in her monologue, she's like praying
that she
out
doesn't
loud.
see them. Yeah. There are some things about Momo's mother, whose character's name is Ikuko. I don't know if we've said that yet. But I don't think that Ikuko, and I think this is kind of to the benefit of the movie because she's an actual human being with flaws, but I don't think that she comes off as the perfect mother. I think that she comes off as kind of a bad mom in some ways, in at least how she deals with this. And, she learns from her mistakes, and she literally apologizes at the end of the movie for the mistakes that she's made. But I think it's interesting some of the things she does. Earlier, she's basically trying to get back into the workforce, and she's going to train to be like hospice care, I think. I think that's what it is. And she leaves her little girl at home. She leaves Momo at home, who's an elementary aged girl whose father just died. And you're making her stay home for the telephone man, right? And you've got these and you're living on a compound with your aunt and uncle.
Who Momo clearly doesn't know.
Yes, who Momo doesn't know. And they could very well, like those old people probably aren't going anywhere. They could very well take care of the telephone man. But Ikuko forces her daughter to stay home even though she's going through this tough time. Like for me, like the common sense thing to do is, I don't care that I'm going to training, I'm taking you with me.
You just come with me. If I have to leave, then you come with me.
Right.
And if nothing else, then the aunt makes it apparent that in a later scene where she's like, you don't have to work yet. You don't have to go back to work yet. Clearly, it's obvious that this aunt and uncle would just take care of them for a while.
Of course.
Would just let them live there, would just feed them, would just let them be in their house. But
again, this is also about Ikuko's grieving process. This is how she's dealing with it.
The way she's dealing with it is just moving on, move forward, keep going.
Keeping busy.
And the aunt at one point when we first see Ikuko have a little asthma attack, they're working some fields together, and the aunt says to her, you don't have to be working right now. You don't have to go right back to work. And Ikuko is just like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. I just need to do this. I just need to. But for me, when I hear that, then it solidifies what you're saying into my mind, that this is a choice the mom is making. She has the option of staying home with Momo and spending some time with her daughter and letting them adjust to this new life together, letting them grieve together a little bit. I don't know what their pressures were when they were living. I think they were in Tokyo. I don't know.
They make references to Tokyo, so I think that's what it is.
I don't know what kind of job she had or what financial stresses they had, but I can guess that life was maybe too stressful or too financially too much of a financial burden for her to just take time off and stay at home with Momo.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's in a position now where she can, where there's someone who's just going to take care of them. And she's not doing that because she's dealing with her grief in her own way, but it is negative to her daughter. It has negative repercussions for her daughter.
Yeah. I think so. The training that she's going to, we see her get on a ferry like every day to go to this training, and she leaves Momo at the house, and that's where Momo is now. And this is how she gets into all these adventures with these crazy yokai that she's seeing right now, and trying to kill by breaking their little wooden passport to the human world. Which is another thing I want to talk about. I think the physical comedy in this movie is great.
Yeah,
I love the physical comedy in this. It's just
I love
brilliant.
the yokai. I love the 3 yokai so much.
I do too, and I think that the interesting thing about especially the small one, especially Mame, and they've all got names that have a meaning, right? Iwa is the big one, and his name means boulder, and Kawa is the middle one, and his name means river, and Mame is the small one, and his name means bean. And Kawa, I think, is interesting. The middle one's interesting because they never say exactly what yokai he is. In fact, they don't say what any of them are specifically. But
you can kind of guess, though.
He appears to be a kappa.
Kawa? The middle one?
Kawa,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
not only does Kawa sound kind of like kappa,
and
it also means
Kawa,
river.
Kappa come from rivers typically,
Right.
or small bodies of water, and are sometimes referred to, aren't they sometimes referred to as like Kawa something? Anyways, there's another name for them.
Oh, I'm not sure.
But anyways, though, I really think he's definitely supposed to be some version of a kappa.
Something like
because
that.
Not only
He's certainly reptilian.
He's reptilian looking. He's got that beaked kind of face, and Iwa makes a comment in the beginning when he says something about your skin looks like this form looks like you would be okay with water and you wouldn't have a problem with water, and kappa of course live in water. And also he farts as a superpower, and
maybe one of the greatest fart jokes I've ever seen committed to film. Like, honestly, there's nothing cringy about it. It's I really think that moment's kind of funny.
But kappa are notorious for just being disgusting.
Yes. Did we talk about I feel like we talked about kappa on a previous episode.
We've talked about kappa a few times.
Have we? Okay.
Yeah, because I've done a lot of research on kappa, and our local town has a history of kappa, and I've been all around and I've done a lot of research for kappa, and kappa they can be really disgusting. I mean, there's a lot of old paintings and stuff that show kappa like raping women and stuff too. Yeah. But disgusting in like a trickery kind of way too, where like they fart and then disappear so that people will blame each other about like who farted. And then like weird.
You do that to me in public.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
And then weird stuff like outhouses back in the day where they would hide in the toilet part, like down in the filth.
Yeah.
And they'd wait till someone would sit down on it so they could reach up and tickle their butthole.
Yeah.
And then of
they're
course,
fetishists.
We always talk about the anus soul pearl.
The butt pearl, yes. The butt. We must have talked about this.
Yeah, we've talked about it like 2 or 3 times.
The butt pearl. It's very important. The people don't, even Japanese people don't know about this because I've tried to bring it up and they always look at me like, why are you talking about this? And I'm like, it's really funny because the kappa, it wants your soul and it's inside a pearl. It's in your butthole, so it reaches up inside your butthole. And you've never heard of that? And they're like, no. You're just talking about.
You're just making up weird shit. No, it's for real.
It's the weirdest pickup line I've ever heard.
And also Kawa talks about wanting to eat liver.
Yes, which is important.
And human liver
livers.
is
Iwa's using a Japanese toilet. Did you see that?
Yes.
The Japanese toilet is the bane of my existence. And I would say that I'm roughly the size of Iwa's. So the fact that he's using one, I really feel for him. I really feel for my brother. But yeah, no, it's terrible. You have to squat over it to do your business, and it's just
face the hood. Yes, just remember.
Yes, face the hood. But I don't know how you're supposed to do it without completely taking off everything below the waist.
I don't have to take off all my clothes to use a Japanese toilet.
I do every time I try.
Do you take off your pants?
I have to. Every time I try to do it without doing that, I feel like I'm going to piss and shit all over my clothes.
You don't really take off your pants.
This is the grossest episode of Popcorn Poops. How long did it took us almost a year to actually have an episode of a show called Popcorn Poops, or we talk about
it's not named that because of poop though.
No, have we talked about why
we've ever talked about that?
Okay, well this is a revelation because I've actually seen people who talk about the show on online and on Tumblr and stuff like that. They always have really nice things to say about our show, but it's always prefaced with like, the title aside, this show is like really whatever. The reason we're called Popcorn Poops is because poop is man, I feel really weird vocalizing this. It's kind of strange. It's probably going to kill this in our relationship. Poop is a pet name that we use for each other.
Yeah, it's a pet name you used.
I use for you.
For years.
And I used it on you for years and years and years, and then eventually...
And I rolled my eyes and wished you didn't, and just whatever.
And then eventually you started using it too.
Right.
So when we were trying to think up names for our podcast, we... Actually, it was your idea. Because I had some ideas like talking during movies or something like, or movie talkers. I think I wanted to call it the movie talkers or something like that.
That's a stupid name.
And yeah, it's pretty stupid in retrospect. And you were like, how about the Popcorn Poops? Because we call each other poop and like popcorn like a movie. And I'm like, that's perfect.
And after you eat popcorn, you have popcorn poops.
So it only took, this is what episode is this? This is episode 38 of our show. 38 episodes that we've done.
Before we talked about why we have such a stupid title.
Before we talk about why we have such a stupid name for our show, and also a show that we actually talk about defecation.
But back to what's important. Do you really take off your pants entirely when you use Japanese toilet?
Is that the most important thing?
Because this is a revelation for me. Like, I'm trying to imagine you in these tiny, tiny stalls. Like,
check this out. I can't get Iwa to back me up. Dude doesn't even wear pants. He's not wearing pants, so we can't see the scene where he takes off his pants completely. I just can't do it. I know you're supposed to be able to, but I can't.
No one takes off their pants to use those toilets.
God damn it. Great. Awesome. Moving on, I suppose. If we can even move on from that. I don't know. We've totally sabotaged this episode. Anyway. So, we talked about some of the physical humor in the movie. I really like Momo's physicality specifically. Like there's some things that she does that are really great, like how she pushes herself across the tatami floor and stuff like that. Like she really exudes that kind of extreme.
Oh yeah, when
boredom.
she's like on her back, like scooting across the floor. That's what our cats do.
And when she gets in these situations, like when she's running around the town and she's like avoiding people who she's about to run into, she has like these really wild flailing arm motions that are not unlike a Kermit the Frog type thing, but I don't know, it feels like this kind of flustered young girl, how she might actually react in these situations. And I think she's got a really great physicality to her, which is, it's impressive for an animated film to get those things across. But I think what's even more impressive is how this film actually expresses emotion through facial expressions, right? Because you get those emotions. You get those emotions in how their faces are animated, and I think that's really awesome. I think that's the trick, because you can't just direct an actor like in a live action film. You can't direct an actor and say, okay, you're feeling this, I need this from you, I need your face to do this, let's try it this way, and you get that. You have to draw it, you have to create it from scratch. And if you can get that across, that's an amazing, like it's like magic. It's a magical thing. It's that the human eye can see something that's completely artificial, completely artificial,
and get an emotion out
and
of
get
it.
a real emotion out of it. And that's the magic of animation, I think.
So this little girl is May, right?
Well, she is. If we want to talk about Totoro a little bit more, we do have this boy character who is like Kanta from My Neighbor Totoro, who's a boy in the town who's a little bit standoffish, but he's totally our main character's like same age. And he has a little sister who can also see the yokai, can see the spirits. And she's a little pushy, and she's a little talkative, and squints at the yokai angrily when she when she looks at him, when she sees him, and definitely makes you think of May from Totoro. Oh, certainly. So in this movie, you've got an older girl and a younger girl who can both see the spirits, and then a boy who's the same age as the older girl who can't, who's a little standoffish. I mean, it's Totoro. This movie is Totoro.
No, it's not.
It is. That was our hint. Let me see if I can find who got it. Oh, okay. Our hint this week was that shot of the boat that we just saw, and Lennon Nguyen on Facebook wants to plug the Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast, of which I am an alumni, so to speak. And I think that fits, because we haven't plugged them throughout this whole month yet, and it's a month of anime films, so that kind of makes sense. You can find Lennon on their forums or on Twitter under the name Icy Rose, and on Twitter, Outlaw Venom recognized the movie from the screenshot, but he did not have a plug of any kind. But congratulations to you both.
Good job.
You have an incredible eye, because I couldn't do most of the hints that I put up, honestly. I intentionally search for the most obtuse, obscure, random screenshot that's on the screen for the shortest amount of time and put it up, and guarantee, like, I don't think we've ever had one
that someone didn't
guess. Yeah.
Here's the moment where she's practicing jumping off the bridge. She's like on a rock, and Iwa comes over and poses as he pushes her off the rocks. Iwa, I think, is supposed to represent some kind of Oni with he's got the little horns going on, and he's got the big open mouth thing with the fangs, which makes me think of the mythological, like, lion looking creatures that are outside of gates and things like that always have the big mouths open.
Yeah, I think he definitely does have that kind of almost classic Oni look. His mouth is open all the time. It's amazing.
He says "Degozaru" for everything.
Degozaru.
He uses really old formal Japanese speech.
Old school, maybe not old school, but longtime anime fans who are familiar with Rurouni Kenshin will recognize, if you watched it in Japanese, you'll recognize that speaking pattern where you end a sentence with "degozaru," which is a really super old way of saying "des," which is just is. It's like the to be verb.
I think my favorite one is at some point he's saying like Yahoo or something, and he's like Yahoo degozaru. And it cracked me up.
Actually, there are moments like that. Like, it doesn't strike me as so odd because I've watched a ton of like samurai films and stuff like that. But there are moments like in the Rurouni Kenshin movie. I think the last line of the first live action Rurouni Kenshin movie, he comes back to the house where his kind of adopted family. I can't remember any of their names. He comes back and he says "Tadaima de gozaru," and I'm like, can you? I guess you can.
That?
Like, I don't want to question like a native Japanese scriptwriter who wrote this, but it hit my ear a little strange. But I don't know.
Well, we don't say Tadaima des. So.
Yeah, I don't anyway.
But I wanted to talk about Sugawara no Michizane.
Yes.
The person they talk about. They use as a lie. The yokai uses as a lie.
There's a visual reference to it earlier where she's running away from them before she's actually seen them. Mm-hmm. The shrine that she's at says that it is the tomb of Sugawara no Michizane. Is that right? Is that what his name is?
Yeah.
Sugawara no Michizane.
No Michizane. And they refer to him as the prince, and
right.
They talk about being sealed in the book because he defeated them.
Yes.
And of course, this is a lie because they've actually been sent from, I guess, heaven.
Yeah.
By, I guess, God.
Yeah, sure.
But whatever, it's Japan.
Real loose definitions of
It's
of
Japan,
that.
though. And Japan with religion, it's just like, whatever. It's cool. Sure. Yeah, sure. We believe in God. Do you believe in a God? Yeah, sure.
Why
Do you
not?
believe in lots of gods also besides a God? Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Why not? Sure.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. It's cool.
easy,
Just
fine.
all of it. Whatever. Do you believe in no God? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Sure, there's no God, but there's also lots, and there's also none, and
there's also just
all
one.
of them are in the trees and the rocks and everywhere.
And also, it's just one God, and whatever. But anyways, though, so they've been sent from the sky by someone, and they're supposed to be protecting her during the period of time that her father's soul is going from wandering the earth for a bit and then going up and reaching heaven.
Right. I got the impression that his soul is already like in the process of going to heaven.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
it's
That's
a journey that he has to go on.
That's what's going on now. And so they're here to watch over her and her mother during this time when he cannot watch over them. Because of course in Japan, ancestors looking after, not just in Japan, but in Asia, it's, the idea of your ancestors taking care of you. Think back to Mulan, right?
Right.
Your ancestors watch over you. They give you guidance. They take care of you in a way. And he can't do that when he's transitioning up to heaven. But this is a lie about Michizane. It's not what actually happened, but they tell Momo this so that she will not know the real reason they're there, because I guess that's one of the rules. They talk about some ambiguous rules a few times, and I guess that's one of them. The real Michizane was a scholar, a poet, and a politician during the late 800s. He died in the early 900s, and he's revered today as the god of learning. He was a governor for a bit, and he held places in court,
Actually,
including...
as the god of learning, his name is Tenman Tenjin, or just Tenjin, and he's actually shown up in a bunch of... he's shown up in a bunch of different kinds of media, but he's also shown up in a bunch of anime. And the last one that I can think of off the top of my head, I believe he was a character in a show called Noragami from last year, I think. So he pops up in stuff. But continue, please. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So I guess it's one of those cases where he was a real person, but now I guess he's revered as a god.
What's
of
that
sorts.
called? It's not deitized. It's something.
Deification or something like
something
that?
like that. Yeah.
Anyways, all I can think of is Skyrim and how that's like the big problem, and that's why why there's war going on is because the high elves didn't want that. Anyways, so one of the positions that Michizane had was the assistant master of the crown prince's household, but he was not actually a prince himself. So the yokai, at least the translation of what the yokai said in this version, was wrong.
Well, they're lying, so they
So
don't know shit anyway.
It doesn't really matter. And he definitely didn't have any history of defeating monsters, that's for sure.
I did have a note. Oh, that's it. That's the moment. Maybe the greatest fart in all of cinema. I'm not
Really?
kidding. I'm not kidding. That
The
might
greatest
be
fart in all of
It might
cinema.
be the greatest fart in all of cinema. Because it sounds more like a laser blast. Like it doesn't have the classic, that. It's not like that. It's like a like it explodes and everything goes slow motion. It's wonderful. It's a great moment. It's super funny. This is a really strange chase scene.
It is perhaps the strangest chase scene that I have ever seen.
It is remarkably slow paced. Remarkably so. And they're also breaking the fuck out of these rail cars. They've broken 2 rail cars that don't belong to them.
Yeah, it's totally true. These farmers are going to be super pissed.
And I don't know what exactly the significance. Maybe it's just another bit of irony. Maybe Okiura really likes visual irony, I suppose. But she's wearing a shirt that says "Luck" on it, and the engines that power the rail cars are called Lucky 2. They have Lucky 2 written on the side, which all seems to coalesce in one scene, like just randomly. So I don't know if it's supposed to be, oh, how ironic that you see luck everywhere, but this is not a very lucky moment.
No, it's not. One of the other Japanese things that I wanted to talk about was we saw Mame a while back stacking rocks.
Yes,
he was stacking some rocks on top of the shrine where she had her little Totoro moment and took refuge there from the rain.
Oh yes, just like in My Neighbor Totoro. You mean yes?
And Mame, the smallest of the 3 yokai, he's sitting on top of above the shrine, and he's stacking up some rocks. Stone stacking can be like a form of prayer in Japan. Visitors to shrines often do this. It's a form of meditation, as a form of remembrance. It's also used for marking graves. There are 3-tier and 5-tier ones that are very famous that you'll see in a lot of grave sites. So lots of symbolism here for death, definitely.
Yeah.
And even in scenes that seem to have nothing important going on in them, but while he's sitting there doing that, I don't remember. I didn't note if it was the 5-tier Gorinto, I think is the name of the stack, or the 3-tier Hokyointo. But
I have no idea.
But either way, I didn't look up to see what kind he was doing. But either way, they're grave markers.
It's a deep ass level of research that I'm learning things right now. I didn't know this stuff.
Yeah, Wikipedia is really, really deep. Actually, it wasn't Wikipedia. I actually did have to look somewhere else.
One thing that I'm actually meant to mention before was that she actually mentions, well, I'm talking about Ikuko. Ikuko, her mother, actually mentions the island that she goes to for training, and it's a town called Imabari, and you can also see it written on the destination plaque on the ferry that she gets on. And Imabari is actually a real city.
Yeah, I actually know that one.
And it's like southeast. It's across the Seto Inland Sea and southeast of Hiroshima. And because when I type in Shiojima in Google Maps, maybe there is some place, and it takes me to the center of Hiroshima when I type in Shiojima. But I couldn't find an actual place called Shiojima where they're allegedly supposed to be right now. So I think that general area is close enough, especially because there are real landmarks that they mention, real cities that they mention in the movie. This is a great little moment. Great little moment. Tuna flake, maguro, which is tuna, of course. I love this little moment when she brings them food.
I love canned fish in Japan.
You can get, in the United States, I think you can only get tuna.
No, you can get other canned fish. You
get...
can get oyster and stuff like that sometimes.
Okay. You can get all sorts of stuff.
Anchovies.
Here. Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
Stuff like that.
Sardines. Yeah.
But here you can get all sorts of canned fish and there's always an aisle that has like a section that is just canned fish. And the reason canned fish is so great is because if you're lazy like me and you come home from work and you don't want to cook, then you just open up a pack of instant rice and pop that in the microwave and then just dump a can of fish on top of it, and it's like, oh look, washoku. Yeah, get some instant miso.
Yeah, washoku being we may have mentioned this
I'm
before.
sure we have.
Yeah, I think we have. But washoku is what they call just standard Japanese meal, which would be fish, rice, and miso. I think it's even more specific than that. I think it's just rice, and if you have rice and miso, that's basically washoku. But they often have rice and vegetables and other things with it. But that's the core. Rice and miso are the core of a Japanese meal.
But you can get canned fish and every kind of fish and every kind of flavoring for that fish.
Oh, I found
also canned meat too, which I'm not really
not
fan
a fan
of.
No, not good. I found the little boy's name. The little boy's name is Yota.
Oh yeah, that's
His
right.
name is Yota.
Yota.
I kept wanting to call him Ko, but it's Koichi that I'm thinking of, who's the mailman.
And Kuroneko dropped off a package too at their house.
That's right, Kuroneko. When did that happen?
It was before the chase scene.
Okay, yeah, Kuroneko. They drive around these green and yellow trucks, and they're basically like the UPS of Japan. The UPS or the FedEx of Japan. They deliver.
But they have little black cats as their symbol.
Yeah, a little mother cat with a baby
carrying
cat
a
baby cat.
Cute. Yeah, that was right before the montage scene, which was something I wanted to point out.
Montage.
Oh, I love all the yokai. This feels like Mushishi. This shit feels like Mushishi.
Yeah, it
like
does.
all this, the way the yokai move in these scenes.
Mushishi being a series TV show,
which I love.
Yeah, it's great.
It's incredibly beautiful and it has an incredible score. And
actually, there's a live action movie.
I have not seen that because.
Do you know who directed it?
No.
Katsuhiro Otomo, who directed Akira.
Really?
Yeah.
You haven't watched it.
I have not seen it. No.
I just can't imagine it could be good.
No, I've seen some screenshots from it, and it doesn't inspire confidence at all. The main character looks really weird with that terrible white wig.
Yeah,
it looks pretty bad.
But I love the anime. I love it a lot. It's one of my it's one of my go-tos for falling asleep, which is a positive thing for me. This is not a negative thing when it comes out of my mouth.
Sleepy time movies,
sleepy time movies. I go to sleep to the TV every night. I can't sleep without it, and I have to find things that really just make me relaxed and make me feel happy and peaceful and good, so that I can stop thinking about whatever stress I have in my head. And Mushishi is definitely one of those. I love that anime so much. But the way these yokai move, the watery way, the liquid look they have to them.
Yeah, the runny eggs thing that I was talking about before. Yeah. They
look like bugs.
It definitely sets them apart from everything else, which I think is a positive in the movie. I like that choice a lot. I mentioned Yota. I found his name because I actually have a note about his dialect and the way he speaks. I don't know if you noticed. The way he speaks Japanese is really like relaxed and lazy even.
Yeah, well, he is a little boy, so.
He is, but there's something about it. Like my Japanese level is okay. I can.
It's better than okay.
I can hold conversation fine, and I can understand like 90 to 95% of everything that's said to me, unless it's like super technical medical,
or talking about
specific.
Cars or something.
We're talking about cars. I don't know anything.
Anytime we go to the mechanic, it's just like
I'm like, please speak to me like I'm a child, because I don't even know this stuff in English, and they get a big kick
whereas
out of that.
in my Japanese, you have to speak to me like a child no matter what you're talking about.
Well, you've learned most of your Japanese from children,
so
that makes sense. But yeah, Yota's dialect, I want to say, I'm not familiar with dialects from this far south in Japan, because
we've never been.
We don't live down there, and we're not exposed to it all the time. But I feel like this kind of small island dialect is probably a closer comparison to the American Southern accent, right? Although it's interesting because in anime, it's a popular, it's really popular and really common, I think, to use an American Southern accent to replace the Osakan dialect.
Osaka Ben is usually a Southern.
Yeah, that's how it's usually treated in English dubs. So like if you see
like English, Osaka from Azumanga.
Yeah, that's a good example. Osaka from Azumanga Daioh is a character who's from Osaka, and in the English version, she speaks in like an American Southern accent. That's how they decided to translate that, that dialectical difference. Is that a word, dialectical?
Sure.
Go
awesome. With it.
But no, I feel like this would be actually a
I
lot.
think you'd just say dialect. I think dialect can also.
Yeah, I think this would be a lot closer. I think if I were to direct a dub and there was an Osakan character who spoke differently, I don't know, I might have them do like maybe a mildly Boston kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I was thinking more like like northeastern
Right, like
accent. When I think Osaka, I think of New Yorkers yelling at people to move the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like I think what's commonly referred to as Tokyo Ben or Kanto Ben, people from like the center of Japan around Tokyo, the capital, they typically speak in what one might refer to as like
The standard dialect.
Yeah, standard dialect or a region-free dialect.
Right.
I'm not sure if, like, I think that's probably pretty close to what our dialect is in English. So yeah, like if you're talking about another metropolitan city like Osaka that has a very distinct way of speaking, and they use very specific like idioms and things like that.
And it's hard to understand them.
It is hard to understand them.
Especially if they're angry.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
Or they're old men, but that just goes for all Japanese people.
I haven't pissed off too many Osakans, but
I can't do old Japanese men. Anytime they talk to me.
The old man in this movie talks kind of like that. He's just real.
Oh man, and I've been in conversations before.
Like they speak slowly, but they slur all their words, and I'm just like, man, I know I look like an idiot to you right now, but I
have
can't.
no idea what you're saying.
Idea what the fuck you're saying, man. Wow, it's really weird that our characters are dancing to try to accomplish something magical. Like, what is that movie that they do that in? It's
you're really funny, but I don't think, and he does kind of have like Totoro ears going on here with the bunny thing, right?
Oh my god, yes, he does.
But no, actually, I still think fuck you, basically.
Why is fuck me? It's so obvious.
It is obvious. I'm not saying that I don't see it. Of course, duh, I have eyeballs, so I can see the references to Totoro, but I don't have a problem with it. You're the one who has a problem with it, and you feel like they're stealing from Totoro or something, and I don't feel like they're stealing from Totoro.
I think this movie, I think that there's, nothing is black and white, obviously, but there is kind of like this gray area between homage and ripoff, and I think this movie gets pretty close to, the more negative side of that, the ripoff.
I don't know what's the problem with there being with there being a grown-up Totoro, with there being a grown-up story that's dealing with the same things, that has a lot of the same imagery going on. I mean, if you're talking about death and stuff, then there's going to be a lot of the same imagery. And we're in a rural Japanese town.
I know.
It's going to be a lot of the same imagery.
I know. It's just, it feels...
The dances and stuff they do in Totoro, you could say they're ripping those off of, whatever all Japanese traditional dances.
I get it. All of the stuff in this movie that feels like it was pulled or derived from Totoro, and I think that's the worst thing that you can say about this movie, is that it is very derivative. But
I don't think it's derivative.
It absolutely is derivative, but I'm not saying that that's totally 100% a bad thing. The reason that feels like I don't know, like a negative point or a demerit against the movie is that it just feels lazy. That's all it is. All of that stuff works in the movie. All of it works.
I don't think it feels lazy. I don't see how you're feeling laziness out of this. This does not exude laziness to me. I think that this is a very different take on a very similar theme and in a very similar setting with characters that are going through the same things because they're going through the same things.
It is a different take because it is more pointed, and instead of having this where Totoro is more about like childhood and exploration and like the wonders of the magic of nature.
And it's also a nostalgia movie. I mean, Miyazaki himself said that it was a nostalgia movie.
Well, exactly.
And this very clearly is too.
And I'm not saying that there's not value in both of these. I think that Totoro is very, very broad. Very, very much so. And it's just got hints and shadows and just layers of these different emotions. It's more like, emotional layers that you can just experience by watching the movie. This movie is very pointed and very specific, and it's talking about very, very specific things when it comes to grief and how people deal with those things differently. And I think that it co-ops some very specific things from Totoro to make that happen. Now, I think that the criticism against that is that it can feel lazy. However, I think that it is all relevant in this movie, so it's not. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying it's kind of transparent, and I think it's worth mentioning. That's it. But I think that it all works in this movie. Really, it does.
Oh, we missed a couple scenes back. You could hear the morning announcements playing outside the house when she was waking up.
Oh yeah.
Something going on either over the intercom or someone driving. I think it was over intercoms, not someone driving by the house. But that's a thing that takes a while to get used to here, is hearing the announcements and stuff in the cities and the towns. Like we have a 5 o'clock song that plays at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Every day. And it's just, it plays through the intercoms that they have posted all around the town, and it's a different song in every town. And if you go and you're in another town at 5 o'clock, you're going to hear a different song.
Yeah, they call it the goji chime, chime, or 5 o'clock chime.
I guess one of the uses is to let children know that it's 5 o'clock now, so maybe it's time to come home and eat dinner or something like that. But also announcements too. They'll do announcements over those kind of intercoms, and then truck announcements too. They usually on little white K cars. They'll drive around with big speakers on top of them, and not white K cars, K trucks, and they'll shout things at you that you can't understand even if you're Japanese.
They will, and they've seen me outside before, and
politicians
and stuff. They've seen me standing outside before, and they'll drive by and say, "Hello, how are you?"
It's just like, great, I can't vote for you, so.
Excellent. Yeah, I've had politicians approach me out of those trucks, like I'm getting out of my car somewhere, and they stop and get out and give me information, and I'm like, "You realize that I can't vote, right?" And they're like,
they have to realize that.
I mean, but they act like they haven't realized that until I said it, and they're like, "Oh, of course you can't. Well, have a nice day, haha." And then they leave, and I'm like, "Yeah, man."
But they also intercoms and stuff like that are used for sweet potato cars and tofu cars and all sorts of crazy things.
There's
this moment where she's realized that Kawa has stolen her mom's mirror because they've been stealing things throughout this whole movie. And she keeps telling them to stop stealing things, and they keep stealing things anyways. And he's taken a mirror that her dad gave her mom, that her mom's been looking for, and now he's broken it. And mom's going to come upstairs, and we're going to have an emotional outburst from both of them.
This is a really great scene. It's a really great moment. I think this is also another moment that made you cry, if I'm not mistaken.
A lot of this moment right here where the mom gasps because she sees the mirror is broken, and we think, oh God, she's pissed about the mirror, and the first thing she says is, "Are you hurt?" and doesn't even look at the mirror, doesn't even care.
Mm-hmm. She says she doesn't care about the mirror right there. It's it's a good moment, and like amidst all of these scenes of questionable parenting where you're questioning her choices in light of the terrible events that have taken place, prior to this movie, and all of the things that her young daughter is dealing with and the things that she's dealing with and all this stuff. I think that this kind of scene is necessary to show the audience that she is a good parent, and the reason that you can tell that she's a good parent is not that she makes all the right choices, but that she's trying as hard as she can.
Yeah.
And in moments like this, of the knee-jerk reactions and things, she can make good decisions as well as bad ones. There's another moment in the movie when she slaps Momo. Is it this scene?
Yeah, it's this scene.
It's this same scene where, it's a scene of knee-jerk reactions from the mother where she comes up, sees
all
the
this
broken
stolen
mirror.
stuff.
She
and has heard, people in the town talking about stuff being stolen.
Right. Yep. And, she slaps her right here. Because
Momo keeps saying, there are yokai here. Can't you see them? Can't you see them? And, of course, the mom can't. And then it does lead us to, and I'm not one to dive into this sort of thing too hard, but it does leave us to have a little moment where we think maybe this is just Momo's imagination. Maybe this is just her way of dealing with this grief and dealing with this.
It kind of,
that she's stealing all this stuff, that she's doing all of this.
It has shades of like Pan's Labyrinth, which we haven't covered on, but we should.
Is one of my favorite movies,
yeah,
and yours.
It's wonderful.
Too.
It's wonderful. But yeah, that's definitely a stay tuned for Popcorn Poops. We'll be doing that at some point in the future. But yeah, it's got shades of Pan's Labyrinth where it doesn't quite draw your attention to it so much. I feel like in Pan's Labyrinth, it's a question that it wants the audience to have in their mind.
I don't think this movie really wants you to have that question.
I think that it's pretty confident that you're on Momo's side.
Yeah.
And you know that these things exist, and there's no reason for you to think that they don't exist. And of course, her mother questions her, but I don't think that question is ever actually there for the audience.
So the thing going on here, I love how Iwa's expression, even though his mouth doesn't ever change, I still can see. You were talking about expressions in the characters' faces, and even with him, even with his big open stupid mouth, like I still can see when he's distressed. I can see when he's not distressed, when he's having a good time, when he's laughing, when he's worried. This movie does a really good job with that.
Yeah, I think so too. Actually, one of the things that I did want to talk about with Ikuko's grieving process and her characterization, the film is very deliberate about how it reveals it. In my notes, I say that it's very measured and deliberate, and I think that rings true. It's very measured and deliberate in how it deals with Ikuko's grieving process and how it reveals these different layers of her grieving process. And it actually flirts with the risk of making her unsympathetic, I think. And we've talked about this a little bit already, but the ending, of course, absolves her of any and all antipathy because she does apologize, and we learn that she is a good parent that's trying to do the best that she can in a bad situation. But I think that the movie really, really makes you see this situation through Momo's eyes. It forces you to. In as much as we see the mother the way Momo sees the mother, that maybe she isn't caring enough, right? Maybe she doesn't care about her father or her dead husband, rather.
We only get very, very small, brief glimpses of the mother's side of what's going on here. Brief moments where Momo's mother, where we see her alone without Momo, like in a scene like this.
Right, exactly. But most of what we see is Momo forced to deal with things her own way on her own.
Oh, I love that shot with the rain hitting the stone and seeing the drops.
Yeah.
Bit by bit until it covers it.
But yeah, there are also other little moments that kind of that expound on this and color these emotional changes and these characterizations. There's one where Momo and her mother are talking before they go to sleep, and Momo talks about her dad and says, he loved the sea and that she doesn't hate the island so much anymore. And Ikuko falls asleep while she's talking about this and doesn't respond. And Momo just kind of turns her back on her mom and says, okay, well, she's not really listening. And that you feel that, like, Ikuko just falls asleep, but Momo takes that really personally and thinks that it means something more than, her mom just fell asleep. Right. And we're meant to kind of...
As I would if I were a child and I were in that situation.
Of course. And you're meant to kind of linger on that moment. And until the movie puts it right in front of your face, which we just saw in the scene where the mirror broke and Ikuko slapped Momo. Before Momo walks out, she says straight up what she's been feeling this whole time, and that's that she feels like her mom has forgotten about Momo's father, her husband. And up until that point, that has been built up. The audience has been, I think, given enough information to get that from Momo, but there is that moment of revelation where she has to tell her mother. But I do think it's good characterization and it's good writing in that we can see that that's exactly what she's feeling before she actually has to spell it out for her mom. And I think that's really important. And now we're getting a flashback of her talking to her father.
An extended version of the flashback that we saw at the beginning of the movie.
We do get an extended version of her finding the letter where she breaks down, and it's extra heartbreaking. And we see her reaction to it. We see her reaction to the letter.
Whereas before we haven't seen her react to it. We haven't seen her break down and cry. We haven't seen her openly grieving for her father like that, because she's been reserved and cold and quiet and distant and not letting herself really show any emotion at all. It's a clever way to do that, to show us that scene and not show her reaction in that moment, because at the moment that we're getting that flashback, the character isn't having that reaction. She's not breaking down. She's not
this
crying
is the
yet.
moment. Yeah, we get it here too, where she finds the letter and she's going to lose it.
And just starts crying. And that's because that's where Momo is now in the present day story. That's the moment where she's at now, where she's kind of breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we get that information out of the flashback too. And I think it's well done.
Yep.
See, and here she's crying here. And dealing with the fact that she said horrible things to her father before he died. I love that the yokai, that she opens up to them and that they're just like enraptured listening to her story, because they're in trouble too, because they're part of the problem right now.
Yeah.
And then I love that they open up and they tell her the truth about why they're here. One thing we haven't talked about is that a typhoon is coming in this movie.
Yes.
And that's something that we both
have
know
dealt with. We know very well now.
Very well, yes, because we've dealt with that many times while we've been here.
Japan doesn't really get tornadoes.
No, they don't, but it doesn't. But there was one in our city, well, the city where I work, a couple years ago.
Yeah,
that did a bunch of damage.
Killed one person. It's pretty uncommon.
That's what we're used to in Tennessee, though.
Very used to that coming from Tennessee, and coming to Japan. The thing that weather-wise that you need to worry about is the occasional typhoon, especially during typhoon season, which is like mid to late summer, something like that.
Sometimes it's kind of
right?
it's kind of like in like tornado season in the States too, where when the weather is changing really drastically, how it can
have a lot of thunderstorms and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like that. Of course, the other thing you worry about in Japan is earthquakes, of which we had one just earlier today, and also one yesterday. We haven't had them in a long time, but the past couple of days we've had a couple.
Yeah.
Did you feel the one yesterday?
I don't. I'm not like you. I'm not hyper aware of every teeny tiny little earthquake and jumping out of bed and running down the hall when it's like nothing.
That doesn't need to be recorded. No one needs to know how I react to earthquakes. Anyway,
I mean, we have a right to have issue with earthquakes because we were
here during the Great Tokai or the Tohoku earthquake, not the Tokai. No, that hasn't happened.
Hasn't happened yet. Let's hope we're not here when that does happen.
No,
and it will.
It's eventually going to happen. No, the Great Tohoku earthquake of 2011, of which the 4th anniversary just passed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it did.
Yep.
But yeah, we were here during that, so your PTSD or whatever is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, the Japanese houses are equipped to handle typhoons, especially
old. Well, new ones too.
New ones are more. There's a weird disparity. Old houses are better for dealing with earthquakes because old houses are built out of wood, and well, actually, you know what? I think they might be better for both. Now that I think about it, the older houses are built out of wood, which is flexible. So during an earthquake, the houses can move and they won't collapse, hopefully, unless it's a huge earthquake. And then during typhoons, on the roof of old Japanese houses like ours, there are those big like stone clay tiles that are called kawara. And they can be very, very dangerous in earthquakes because they can fall off the house, and if they hit you on the head, you will die. Because they're just super fucking heavy. But during typhoons, they also weigh down the house enough that you won't sustain a whole bunch of wind damage or your house won't blow away.
And you have storm doors. I don't get why people don't have storm doors in the States in typhoon-prone areas. Do they?
They must. Oh, they definitely do. Like coastal cities and stuff that get...
Then why are they always boarding up their houses and stuff?
I don't know.
I don't get it because here, when the big typhoons come, nobody boards up their houses because everyone has these armor doors.
Yeah, they're called amado in Japanese, and the ones on our house they get stored in these big wooden boxes that are attached to the sides of the house near the windows, and you just slide them out from the big wooden boxes and slide them across the big it's nearly floor to ceiling, but these floor to ceiling glass windows.
Well, I guess that's also true. It has to deal with structure of the houses in the States too. People don't typically have entire walls that are made out of glass doors in the States, whereas here We do.
Yeah, and you can see them,
So-
and I think you can probably see the Amado in this movie on the outside of the house, and in a lot of anime where there's a typhoon coming, because it's a pretty common thing in anime that especially in like slice of life shows and stuff like that you got to bunker down for a typhoon and then tell a little intimate story about what happens during the typhoon inside the house amongst all these people that are physically close together now. But yeah, usually you see like doors rattling and stuff like that. I think there's even one they even closed the storm doors in Totoro.
There's a typhoon in Totoro.
That's right. Oh my God, there is. There totally is. And before this, there was a whole thing where when she was telling the story to the yokai about what happened to her dad and the things she said to her dad. You've got Ikuko running around the town looking for her. So you've got a missing child plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Like Totoro.
Run around looking for May.
It's really, really similar.
I know,
like, there's a
but
lot.
I'm telling you though, I just don't have a problem with it. You're seeing it as a really negative thing, and I'm seeing it as Totoro was a long time ago, and it's one of my favorite movies, and I really love this movie, so I'm okay with it kind of being Totoro.
I'm going to go through this. I have a list of all of the similarities between this and Totoro. Okay, so we've got a girl moves to a country from the city with one parent, who quickly becomes busy with work. The parent does. The girl's days are lazy and uneventful, and then that parent also has a history of some kind of chronic illness. We've got, of course, it's not the exact same characters, but
right, I get it. Go on.
Her mother has a chronic illness that she's dealing with right now. There are 3 spirits, one big, one medium, one small.
Yeah, but in Totoro, you don't really deal with any of the other spirits. You don't deal with the little one.
There.
Yeah, so what? I mean, there's also a giant cat bus. What's that? Oh, damn it, the bridge thing.
The bridge thing. I've got that written down too. We didn't talk about this, but I want to. There are these haunted house tropes before the spirits are actually revealed, including key scenes in the attic, right? Themes of death, of course, loss, grief, and mourning, which in Totoro is much more of like an atmospheric kind of lingering shadow, as I've described it before. And in this movie, it's very pointed and specific. A scene where our main character takes refuge from a storm inside a small shrine. Old neighbors that help our main characters adjust to their new life. A boy her age who is standoffish at first. Another little girl who can see the spirits. Only the girls can see the spirits, of course, and not the boy. A scene where the main character does a sort of spiritual dance with the yokai. Like in Totoro, of course.
Yeah, I get it.
For the tree.
Yeah,
you remember that? Remember that scene?
Yeah.
A character gets lost and must be found, and other spirits help the search. And actually, no, these are separate things. A character is lost and must be found. We already saw that. And then later on, from this point on, other spirits will come out and help our main character and like help transport our characters to speed up their progress in the climax of the film.
Next stop, little sister. I get it.
There's also a typhoon in the movie. There's a typhoon, and come on.
I get it. I have never said from the beginning. I have never said that there aren't similarities in this movie. Of course, there are similarities. Very, very obvious many similarities. I get it. I just don't have a problem with it.
Do you think we have yokai in our house?
Yokai, no, but we have a weasel that lives
in the
wall.
We've got something, and this is troubling because I believe we've talked about this on a previous episode, but I'll mention it again. We live in an old Japanese house because it's cheap, and it is cheap because someone was murdered here.
Yes, this is true facts about our life. Not just murdered, but someone was murdered here, and then someone also died upstairs of natural causes.
There was a family that lived here for a long time. Long story short, the father of the family, he was an old guy. He was sick for a long time. He died. And then the son, who was like in his 40s, was taking care of his mother, who was basically just bedridden. And as far as I understand, it wasn't malicious. It was more like I'm putting her out of her misery because I feel bad for her.
You are like putting so much into the story. We don't even have that much information.
I guess that's true. But he strangled her and killed his mother, and then ran out to a bridge near our house and tried to commit suicide, but failed.
Because that river is way too shallow and deep at the same time for it to, like, it's not the kind of river that you can kill yourself in. Like the bridge, what I mean to say is the bridge isn't tall enough.
Oh, right. The bridge is not tall enough. So either if it was...
Not the river is too shallow, but the bridge, the distance between...
That's the key. So that's why we have the house that we're in, but also because it's an old house, there's something living in these walls. Something that is not supernatural.
And you're not saying
natural.
Supernatural because you think that kind of stuff is stupid and you don't want to talk about
There's
it.
no such thing as anything supernatural, because if it occurs and can be observed and measured, then it is in the natural world. So supernatural is an oxymoron. It makes no sense.
Listeners, can you just imagine what it's like to live with him for just a second? Just imagine how annoying it is.
I'm a joy to live with.
Oh my God. Yeah, so of course I am not allowed to...
This is the moment right here where Koichi has an internal monologue, or not a monologue even, but just a couple of internal lines where he says, he's so assertive. Yota is so assertive, and look at me, I'm such a dickbag.
It's so frustrating. It's so annoying because this moment is so important to me.
It is a super important moment, and you don't need that. You can see it on his face. Like, you can see that this is,
It's this emotional moment where Momo is going to go across the bridge in the typhoon, and she begs Koichi to let her go so she can save her mom. And Koichi says she can't go and that it's too dangerous, and Yota yells at Koichi to help Momo. And it's this great moment because we see the real faces of all these characters that we've met, who they love, how they feel, and then it's broken by this inner thought spoken over the action that we already understand. And this is the second time we've had unnecessary, out-of-place, jarring inner monologue spoken out loud, which is so rare in this movie that it never gets to the point where it feels like it fits. Yeah. Because they only do it twice, and you're just like, what?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that happened in The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I mentioned that there's only like one or two instances of it, and because it's used so sparingly, it stands out so much more. Whereas when it's used a whole lot, you get used to it, but it also runs the risk of being super unnecessary and over-explanatory. Over-expository.
And this is the third time. My biggest pet peeve with this moment is that this is the third time in the movie where a really emotional scene has been stolen from us by dialogue. Because the first time we had Momo with the letter where she's like, Dad, what were you going to write? And I'm like, no, shut up. I was already thinking that, and I don't want you to say it out loud. And then the second time where the emotional moment happened that was stolen, we missed it, but the mom is having her asthma attack because she goes out to look for Momo and she exacerbates the problem. And
right.
And when Momo gets home, her mom is, kind of crumpled up on the futon, and she's and the doctor can't get to her. And Momo goes into the her aunt tells her that this is her mom breaking down from keeping her emotions inside her for too long.
Right.
That's what this actually is.
Right.
This is about her not grieving for her dead husband, about her holding all of this inside, and that's why she's having a physical reaction right now. And Momo runs into the next room, in the room with the family altar on it, which we haven't talked about, but most Japanese families, especially traditional Japanese families, keep an altar in their house that, especially if they have loved ones who have recently passed away, that's where the picture's going to go.
We have one in our house, but but we keep Ghibli stuff on it.
It's a Ghibli shrine.
It is a Ghibli shrine that's got like framed postcards from the museum and little figures and statuettes.
The little bus stop from Totoro.
That's the best. I've also got an empty bottle of the what is it? The Kaze no Tani no Biru, or the beer of the Valley of the Wind.
The Valley of the Wind.
That you can only get at the museum. It's a little disrespectful, maybe.
Just a little bit.
Just a hair.
But we don't have any dead ancestors here, so what are you going to do?
That is true.
Right? But anyways, though, so Momo runs to the altar in the house, and she goes to where she saw her mom kind of looking like maybe she might have been crying or something weird was going on that other day. And she looks, and of course it's a photo album, being that her mom has been hiding a photo album there of pictures of her and her.
And the audience is like,
Momo's father.
I get what she's feeling right now. I get the revelation. But of course, Momo has to say.
Momo has to say, Mom was crying. And I'm just like, duh.
I
know Mom was crying. I saw her crying,
I
actually.
know she was, and I know that you know she was now, but you don't have to say it.
And you're going to say it out loud, and then you take it away from me. You pull me out of that emotion by saying it. It's very frustrating.
You remind me very forcefully and aggressively that I'm watching a movie,
right?
Where things have to be spelled out for somebody.
And then authors do it the same way. Bad dialogue. Authors who write bad dialogue do the same kind of thing where they say something that is totally unnecessary, that I don't need you to say, that you take it away from me having the revelation. I just want to feel that revelation. I just want to feel it and breathe it and know that it happened and deal with it emotionally. And when you spell it out for me, then you remind me that I'm reading a book or that I'm watching a movie, and then I stop thinking about just experiencing that moment. Yeah. And it's probably one of my biggest pet peeves in writing, in storytelling.
I had a note here about another reference to Totoro.
Great, go ahead.
So there's a moment when Yota and Umi are waiting for, Umi is the name of the little girl, Yota's little sister. They're waiting for Momo at the bridge, and it's when Momo and the yokai are like searching her room for the missing letter that Iwa has written over, making the report for for heaven.
Yeah. And
she realizes that that she has forgotten their date at the bridge.
Right.
And there's a shot, the opening shot of that scene is of Umi's sandal. And it's kind of... It draws attentions to itself because it's just a shot of her lone empty sandal. She kicks it against the side of the bridge, and you just see her empty sandal for a minute. And that's like
okay, well then maybe this movie is intentionally doing it then.
Of course it's...
But I mean, I know.
It is, of course, intentionally doing it.
But maybe you are being the douchebag here who is pointing out all these things that they just wanted you to see. Of course, they're intentionally doing it.
Why does that make me a douchebag?
Because you're acting like it's a negative thing.
It's not a negative thing. I'm just saying that it might be construed as negative by some people. Like, I think everything in the movie, more or less, that I feel that if you could say it was totally ripped off from Totoro, I think all of that stuff you can make an argument for why it works in this film as well. I'm just saying that it can feel lazy. That's it. I know you want to defend this movie against my allegations that it's just totally plagiarism, like outright plagiarism of Totoro, and it's not. I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's loving homage that maybe takes a step or two too far, a little bit.
I don't think so. Okay, I think it's homage to one of my favorite movies of all time. That's old now. Come on.
Well, this is one of your favorite movies now, I think.
Yeah, I really love this movie.
Yeah, I really like it too. I think it's a worthy follow-up to Jinro the Wolf Brigade, which I do need to revisit, but I remember really, really liking that movie. And it's really sweet, and I think it of this genre of anime, of this kind of slice of life, coming of age kind of thing, of which there seems to be a lot of these kind of movies. I think this is a very popular
oh no, all the poor little yokai
story
that are getting blown away off by the typhoon. I feel bad for him.
Why? You don't know them. Look at this one. He looks like Cthulhu or something.
Man, there are some messed up yokai out there.
Yeah,
there
some
are
weird
some
ones. Yeah,
messed up yokai.
I wonder if Ko in that moment right there when he just passed out, I wonder if like he suddenly saw the yokai.
I think he did.
You think
I
he
think,
saw
yeah,
him? He
absolutely.
was just like you can see the moment his eyes die like Mima in the rape scene from Perfect Blue. His eyes die and he just kind of passes out.
Yeah, no, that was a really like for a comparison.
I could have done better. Yes, I could. I apologize.
Anyways, though, so yeah, okay. Put the pillow over your head because you're having an earthquake. Definitely know that.
I know that moment. I know how that feels.
But I don't put pillows over my head. I just run for the door, or I just stay asleep and I just don't worry about it and let you run for the door. Now I forget what I was saying. Yeah, he definitely saw them because that was the reason why she can see them. That was the reason we were given for why Momo can see them, is because they accidentally fell on top of her head when they arrived.
That's right. They touched her.
Right. So if a yokai touches you, I guess you can see it?
Yes, I suppose
Whatever.
so. That makes sense. I don't know. Mame licks her later, but they
Speaking of yokai that lick you, or, well, that don't lick you, but that lick things.
you don't know what yokai do to me.
There are some really messed up yokai out there, such as one of my favorite ones is Akaname, which is a yokai that is found in dirty bathrooms, and it licks the dirt out of the bathtub if your family has been poor at cleaning. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that is pretty gross.
There's some, and of course, like, yokai can be really weird. It can be like, they can be like household items, like straw shoes
I really
and
hate
old
how that
sake
scene
jars.
ends. The way that scene ends on the bridge, where they get to the other side of the bridge and she just goes on ahead? They just end it there. They're just
I
like,
hate it.
okay, that's
Yeah.
it. I really don't like that.
That's honestly, besides the couple moments in the movie where the 3 moments where they pull me out of the emotion by spouting dialogue that I don't need to hear, and then that including the moment of inner monologue that happens there, and then the other moment of inner monologue that is vocalized for no reason. Those things and the random bridge end, they're the only things I really dislike about this movie.
Yeah.
Basically the only things and I really hate the bridge ending. I don't get it. I don't get why. I mean, I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to see her run in and talk to the doctor and get the medicine. I wanted to see them be shocked that she got there. How did she get there? And her convince them to give her the medicine.
Yeah. You know, we've been talking about how this movie a couple of times, 3 or 4 times or something, uses that internal thing, or the characters talking to themselves or whatever, to expose things that maybe don't need to be exposed, or to be really obvious bits of exposition that kind of pull the audience out of the movie. But I think I do want to draw a comparison to Iwa, who I think he is a really good example of a good way to deal with exposition in the film, because they create a character trait for him. They create a character trait for him by saying that he always over-explains things. Mm-hmm. Kawa says that. Kawa does it twice in this movie, where he exposes something and says too much and gives too much information about something, and Kawa says, "There you go, over-explaining stuff again. You don't have to say everything."
And then Mame forgets everything.
And exactly. And so things need to be explained to Mame. I think it's really interesting. That comes across in his character design too, because if we're using the English idiom, big mouth, he literally has a big mouth.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to deal with exposition, because, we can talk about how exposition in dialogue and exposition in general is a really touchy subject. And the word itself, I feel like, even has a negative connotation among people who analyze storytelling.
Yeah, well, people who get a hold of that word,
like that. Yeah, exactly.
one of those things where it's like you hear the phrase "show don't tell" in like the first writing class you ever take, and then you go around critiquing people about that for like the next 4 years.
You're just like, I think
you're showing and not telling a lot.
Or it's the opposite. I think you're telling too much and not showing.
Sorry.
But it's that way. It's not only that, like the show don't tell thing, but like the word itself, exposition. I feel like if someone comes out of a movie or something and they want to be really analytical and they're like, yeah, there was exposition in the movie and I didn't like that. It's just like, wait a second. All movies have exposition.
All storytelling requires exposition.
Yes, everything has to be exposed. Something has to be exposed for you to understand.
Otherwise, you're going to sit there and be like,
yeah, exactly. You'll be sitting there and being like, I don't understand.
I don't know anything that happened
going on.
So,
am I watching a David Lynch film? Yeah. So it's necessary, but it's I
think the first time I heard the phrase exposition and dialogue as a criticism, to show like how rudimentary it is to storytelling critique. I think the first time someone critiqued me on that, on my writing, I was in a writer's workshop at like 15 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really one of those things that you learn from a very young age to recognize is you've got to be careful about this thing. But it doesn't mean that it's always bad. Sometimes it is necessary.
It is. Well, it's definitely necessary in storytelling, but it's
exposition and dialogue.
Oh yes, yeah, exactly. But it's like I think that the way they deal with it in Iwa's case is really good because they make it a character trait. It's not just about info dump, giving the audience the information they need and offering it on a silver platter and saying, here, you need this to enjoy this movie. Because it can take you right out, but instead they say this character does this because it's part of who he is.
I believe that this movie could have given me the information in another way, but they chose to give it to me this way.
Yes.
That's the difference. The difference is that I trust these writers enough to think that if they had wanted to do this some other way, they could have done it some other way, and they could have told us about how the yokai got there and what their purpose was and whatever. They could have thought of some other way to tell me that, but they chose to do it because they liked the idea of having a character with a gigantic mouth that says too much. Mm-hmm. And so that's how they got the information across.
I think it's perfectly clever and fine, and it doesn't bother me at all. And it makes,
I don't see why it would bother
it
you.
takes that and it informs his character. You can create funny situations out of it. You can make it a joke, and it is a joke, and they use it a couple of times throughout the movie. They implement it into his character design. I think that he works especially well.
But
for
anime
English
does
speakers.
have a historical problem with exposition and dialogue.
The episode 1 info dump.
Yeah,
Jesus.
just love it. So the title of my notes for this section from like starting now till the end of the movie is okay, time to cry for 10 minutes.
The last bit of this movie, don't get me wrong, I really like this movie. But this last chunk of the movie right here, it flirts so hard with being really maudlin.
Oh, don't.
I think that there is a line, and I think the movie
it did not cross it.
It nearly steps over.
No, it didn't.
It approaches the line. It's peeing on the line.
Well, at least it didn't take off its pants to go pee, so.
That's good. That's how comedy works. Brought it back around, and now we're all laughing. We're all,
at least I am.
all laughing at Dustin. That's good. That's really good. No, but I do think that this movie walks right up to the line, takes off its pants, and pees on it.
Nobody does.
You teach kindergarten. I know you've seen some little
They
boys
do
that
not take off their pants. They do
Sure
not
they do.
take off their pants. Oh my gosh.
How did we get back on this?
And little kids don't use Japanese style toilets.
Some do.
Their moms bring them portable potties.
Oh, that's stupid. No, they don't do that at my school. My school just got an updated.
Do you guys have Japanese style toilets?
We used to. They got renovated this year, so we've got all Western toilets in the school. It's awesome and great, and I don't have to squat anymore. I don't have to take off my pants completely. No, there were a couple of Western toilets before, and I would just like go out of my way to use those, like climb a couple of flights of steps and be like, "Where's the Western toilet?" But no, they were all renovated. But most of the ones in the school were Japanese style.
Really?
Yep.
Well, but your kids are older than my kids, though. Your kids are first graders.
1st through 6th.
Yeah, and mine are not even actual first grade age when they're first grade here in Japan.
I think that being an elementary school teacher and seeing how 6th grade Japanese girls act, I think this movie absolutely nails it. It absolutely nails it. And one of the things that I think really, really helps that is the casting of Karen Miyama, who at the time of making this movie was 16 years old.
She's fantastic.
She has a really young voice, and you can tell that it's a young actress playing this role, and she does a really, really great job with it.
Yes, she does.
So, I think that's definitely to the movie's credit, is that they go out of their way to cast a young actress to give some validity, verisimilitude to this performance.
Yeah. So what's happened for my crying for 10 minutes scene so far is that we hear Momo reading her letter that she wrote to her father for the yokai to take up to heaven with them.
Right.
And it's being read over scenes of a Japanese festival of a matsuri. And of course, that's like, for anyone who's spent any time in Japan, that's like Natsukashi as fuck
Yeah.
again. And
I'm gonna
you're
get that
just like,
tattooed on my chest. Natsukashi as fuck.
and just like sitting there and like, oh my god, look, they're playing the ball game, and look, they've got a whole thing of Keitai strap all along the stand,
The
and
takoyaki. Oh my god,
man.
I want to eat the fresh yakisoba. Oh my god.
and everyone's wearing yukata.
Kakigori and jagabata and all that shit.
And so everyone's at the festival, and then they go down to the ocean, and she and her mom. I don't like the moments of CG in this movie.
There are a few of them.
There are
couple
a few
of them.
The boat in the very beginning, the ferry has one, and it really threw me off.
Yeah, that's another one of my pet peeves. That goes back. That goes back to that revelation about animation when I was young. I don't know. I feel kind of the same way about bad CG in animation as I do about bad CG in live action movies. Is that it feels like it doesn't belong in the world that they've created.
Why? Just
yeah.
don't.
This moment right here.
Well, I was explaining what we were crying about. So we cry because of, or if I say we, and of course I mean the royal we, and
the parlance of our times.
we cry about Momo reading the letter she's written to her father, and then we cry about Momo talking with her mom at the beach, and her mom apologizing to her, and them having a real connection for a moment. Mm-hmm. And it is a little unnecessary when Momo's mom is like, I know what your dad would have written. He would have written that he was, I don't know, proud of you, or whatever obvious thing she says. And then Momo watches the other fathers push the boats out. What is this? The Bone Festival?
I don't know what festival it is. I'm not sure.
I think it's like I think it's like a festival for the dead.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. All of the boats have dedication or written on them. It's a very specific thing that they've got written on them in kanji that I had a note for and I lost it. But yeah,
I think it's like maybe the Bone Festival or something, and it has to do with like ancestors and stuff like that. So obviously, like, straight to the themes of the movie.
Oh, it says hono. That's right. On the sale it says hono, which means like dedication or offering or oblation.
Well, and this is taking place in the summer, so tying it to Obon and stuff.
It
right?
might be Obon, the Obon festival.
But anyway, so one of the little boats comes back, and on it is the letter that Iwa messed up and wrote all over, that was Momo's letter from her father, that says Momoe on it.
Yes, the stationery on actually the next letter though.
Well, on the first letter, it's her letter that her father was gonna write her, but he didn't write her,
and it's the one that Iwa messed up.
He messed it up, and it's sent back to her corrected as much as it can be by just marking off
it's
Iwa's
just a hot mess
stuff
now.
and then putting the et for
Momoe
at the end of the messed up stuff, and then behind it is the paper that Mame sent. I guess Mame sent it up to Heaven Blank, because Mame, in one of my favorite scenes in the movie, is sitting there and he's been tasked with writing the message to heaven, and he's sitting there for this long time holding the calligraphy brush, and then he's like, I don't know how to write. And it's just great.
He's kind of got a Gollum thing going on.
He does, but he's really cute, though, in a creepy way.
There's a Japanese word for that. That is something that the Japanese would call kimo kawaii.
Kimo
kawaii. It's a mix with portmanteau. It's a portmanteau from kimochi warui, which means creepy, and kawaii, which is cute. So creepy, cute. They also describe Mario as that. Mario is kimo kawaii because he kind of looks like somebody's uncle. He's got an oji-san-poi kind of thing going on.
So Mame sent a blank letter up to the sky. And of course, we've got the whole parallel between the attic called the sky and then the actual sky.
I had a note about that too.
And she gets that blank paper back, and it has a note from her father on it, which doesn't say all that much, but I guess that's the point, is that he's a short man, and he just gets to the point and says he's proud of her and take care of your mom.
Direct to the point. The stationery that that the note is written on, it looks, I don't know if it is or not, but it looks like something designed by Takashi Murakami, who's a contemporary Japanese artist known for pioneering a postmodern art movement called Superflat. It really reminded me of his style of work, the stationery on that thing. But yeah, I just want to put that out there because I really like his stuff. And if you like the stationery on that piece of paper, then go check out Takashi Murakami.
If you're really into that stationery.
If you really dig that stationery. I feel like the letter from her dad is almost too much.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
It is almost too much because like there are all these emotional beats that the movie is hitting, and I feel like the movie flirts with being like really mawkish or maudlin or whatever because it wants so hard to be satisfying for everyone. But the letter is just, I don't know, like I feel like her getting the letter back corrected is the bookend to that emotional arc right there. I think having her dad write her an actual letter that says all of the things that we know he would say anyway.
I know it's kind of unnecessary. We don't really need it. We don't really need to hear those things because we know what he would have said. Her mom even said what he would have said.
Yeah.
And I get that, and I also agree that it's more again to the point without having to say it to us, to just show the letter corrected and get her momoe back, and not
momoe means to Momo in Japanese. We keep saying it,
but that's what when you see the kana on the letter and it says it has the symbols
to Momo. Yeah.
Anyway, so when we just get that letter, I think that you're right, that it is okay to end it there, and it is maybe a step too much again, like with saying mom was crying or I wonder what dad was going to write. It's a little much to actually read the letter.
It's what Japanese people in like the 80s and 90s would call osenchi, which means like sentimental.
Yeah.
But they use it like as to say something is over sentimental or like mawkish is osenchi.
But again, I don't really have a problem with it because I was crying for 10 minutes anyway, so fine, just let me cry some more, whatever.
The clock works again. There's that.
The clock works again, and I love that the real end to the movie is Momo's end, because this is her story after all, and the end to the movie is her jumping off the bridge, which is symbolic of her letting herself be happy again, letting herself be a child again.
And you've also got some it really lingers on that shot of her under the water, and I think that's kind of representative of a water birth, which again was an image that we saw in The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which, a water birth, of course, symbolizing like a new starter, a fresh starter, a rebirth. And I think that's important and poignant. So,
but anyways, overall, I love this movie. I think it's a beautiful movie. I think that it really resonated with me, that it felt like a Ghibli movie for maybe some reasons that Dustin thinks were a little too much, but I'm totally fine with them.
Maybe I do, but then again, I take off my pants when I
you do take off your pants. I'm just picturing you
my opinion is void.
Stall, trying to take off your pants.
My hands like up against the walls like Samson at the temple.
Where do you put your pants?
I don't know. I hang them on the hook.
Because you don't want to put them on the floors.
No.
The floors are nasty.
Can that be the last word? Can that be it?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, I really like this movie though. It's really sweet and really cute. I
loved it,
and it's great. Of course, it's definitely your kind of. You definitely have a type. You definitely have a type, and I think that you've
I'm fine
really
with that.
Like the 3 movies that you've picked, 3 anime films that you've picked since we've been doing Popcorn Poops.
Did I pick 3?
Well, Totoro.
Totoro,
okay. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and A Letter to Momo.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. They're the same movie.
Anyway, now that we've reached the end of the movie, we'd like to read a 5-star review that we received on iTunes. This review comes from One Half Ranma with the subject line, "A joy to listen to." And One Half Ranma writes, "It's nice to hear intelligent and informative discussion about the movies you love or love to hate with 2 hosts who have excellent chemistry and obviously love what they do. Whether you're listening along with the film or just enjoy listening while doing something else, you'll be entertained and informed. You'll start to watch the films they've discussed just to hear them talk about it. As someone who loves films, I love this podcast. If you love films, you'll like it too. Highly recommended. Thank you very much. And I do want to say that is our last available review. So unless I'm talking to you, the person listening to this episode, unless you go on iTunes or even Stitcher and leave us a review, we won't have anything to read next week. So it's in your hands.
It's true.
Yep.
If you do leave us a rating and review on iTunes, we really, really would appreciate it. And if it's a 5-star review, we'll read it on the show. And if you don't, then we won't.
Those are the conditions. 5-star review.
We won't have one to read.
As always, you can find us on our website at popcornpoops.com. Please follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook if you'd like to receive updates about the show, including our weekly movie still identification game. If you have a question, comment, or movie request for us, you can reach us on our social media outlets or by emailing us at thepopcornpoops@gmail.com.
Next week, we'll be wrapping up our month of anime films with Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell from 1995. If you have any questions about that movie or related topics you'd like us to discuss, please contact us through social media or email.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
We are the Popcorn Poops.
Hey there, movie fans. This is Honor Knight, your head cinematic flusher from the award-winning Soiled Restroom Cinema podcast. Each week on SRC, myself and co-cinematic flushers Congo Rilla and Natalie Grace scour the bowels of Netflix, Vudu, Amazon Instant Video, and YouTube to bring you the absolute worst in streaming movies that Hollywood has to offer. So when you're done pooping in your popcorn, head on over to signalsoffury.com and listen to us play with some cinematic turds for a while. We're here to flush it, so you don't have to see it.